Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Here's looking at you, kid, and here's looking at a continuation of our House of Curtiz here on Houselights, the works of Michael Curtiz. And of course, as you talk about the works of Michael Curtiz, you cannot help but pass through Casablanca, a film which is regarded as one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest, by many, many film critics, and is part of the National Film Registry. So we come here to Casablanca here on Houselights to talk about it. I am cafe owner and functional alcoholic John Mills, and I am joined by the debonair piano player Darren Moser and the slightly corrupt yet lovable chief of police Tristan Riddell, here to talk about Curtiz's classic Casablanca. Gentlemen, this is going to be both a wonderful and a difficult conversation because Casablanca is one of those films where it's difficult to put into words sometimes that which it means to somebody or that which it meant to them at the time or what it means to them years later. Of course, I'll start off by saying this is my first time seeing it in a number of years. My first encounter with it was in college, and I don't recall if it was part of a class or because somebody was like, "You haven't seen Casablanca? You got to see that damn thing." And I wound up seeing it and fell in love with it years and years ago. And it's one of those films that I revisit rarely because I'm terrified of it ever being less special when I watch it. There are films like that. But Darren, what was your first encounter with Casablanca?
Yeah, similar for me. I first caught it in college, but not because I was a film nerd and rooming with other film nerds. This is my wife's favorite movie. Like number one on her list, hands down. She is a big Humphrey Bogart fan. And so she introduced me to this. And so while I totally get not watching it for sentimental reasons, I've seen this many times, including very recently, because it is usually like maybe a Christmas time or just, any time throughout the year. We'll probably watch it at least once a year. Because she really enjoys it. So, and I do as well. So that's the only difference in our stories is the frequency. But again, every time that I watch it, the dialogue is always what strikes me. And I mean, we're going to go through all the list, the cinematography, the music, the acting, the pianoing, all of that. But at the end, I love just the witty repartee of our characters as they're jousting each other verbally. It's one of the best parts.
So what's interesting, Darren, is you and I have both seen Casablanca, not just once, not just twice, but multiple times in our lives as we go through. Because of course,
so many times.
And what's interesting is it's one of those movies that you take for granted that of course somebody's seen it by a certain age. It's sort of like a de rigueur thing. Since there are French people in this, I decided to use a French term there. So I was puzzled when I found out that there was somebody we both know that had never seen Casablanca before. And I believe that gentleman, Tristan Riddell, is here with us on the podcast right now. Tristan, I got to ask a totally different question, one that we throw every so often when somebody encounters something for the first time. But what is it that prevented you from seeing Casablanca? Was it something that you always meant to get around to? Was it something where you were like, yeah, it's an old movie. I'm not really, I've seen enough old movies, or you figured it was reputation had to have been exaggerated? What was it that kept Casablanca from hitting your viewing list through these years?
It was definitely not like I've seen enough old movies. Like I continue to watch older movies from 100 years ago to even further to this day. So that definitely wasn't it. But it was just one of those movies. It was a missing frame. It was something that I just never got around to. I never got the opportunity like no, like someone wasn't in my life and said like, oh my gosh, like let's sit down and watch it. Like you got to watch it. That's my favorite film. Or like this is in my top 5, my top 10 or something like that. Like no one ever presented me with that kind of situation. And I never sat down and was just like, you know what? I'm gonna watch Casablanca. It just never happened. And it was just one of those movies that just kind of fell through the cracks. And it was interesting because I told my wife that we were doing Michael Curtiz, House of Curtiz, and I said, I was like, oh yeah, I need to watch Casablanca. The guys were kind of making fun of me already. And she's like, are you gonna admit on air that you haven't seen it? And
well, that's
is
the
definitely
thing. We're
one
about
of those
transparency
movies.
and honesty here.
Yeah.
There are no secrets between us.
No,
But
none
that's the thing.
whatsoever.
That is
It's
one of those
you know.
movies that you lie about when you're like, oh yeah, you know, I've seen it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, with the
it's
time
classic.
and the thing with the place. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is Casablanca is so ingrained in the culture that even somebody who hasn't seen it has encountered something, you know, play it, Sam. Here's looking at you, kid. Or, you know, actually to go back one, the misquoted play it again, Sam, because Woody Allen released the movie in 1972 by that title. And so everybody, what was it, Mandela effect, where they're like, play it again, Sam. It's like, no, that's not the line from the movie.
It's like beam me up,
So-
Scotty, and
or
Luke, I am your
Luke,
father.
I am your father. It's like, no, that's not the line. But so this is part of the cultural fabric. But in terms of the production, it was not an easy production, and it wasn't, it didn't lean into the idea of auteur theory, where Curtiz had this singular vision and he Nolaned it up, or he was like the Kubrick of his day or anything. This is a movie made by committee. This is a movie based on a play. There are several screenwriters. There's a lot of different drafts. There are different versions. There's, Curtiz is not even the first director considered. And you look at the history of the making of the film, and Darren, I'll toss this to you. Role play for a second. You read the production history of Casablanca, all of the challenges with, censorship and the, changing of lines. And Bogart comes back after the film is completed to record the very famous last line. It's the beginning of a beautiful friendship. They're making changes as they go. None of it's filmed on location. It's all set extensions with paintings and, you have cardboard planes and all of those sorts of things. What would the story have been if Casablanca was covered the way we cover things now with filmmaking? Do you think that Casablanca is screwed coming out of the gate and the studio's just like, well, I was just going to eat this one? Or do you think that it would have managed to fly regardless?
Yeah, I mean, looking at it in that particular context, I don't want to live in a time in the 1940s where there's that much information about the production. It's just, I want to pick up my copy of Variety and see a new movie's coming out next week, and that is the first I've heard of it. That is the amount that I want, instead of nowadays where, rumored so-and-so has been cast in this movie, like that's going to shoot in 2 years and I'm already going to hate it by the time it comes out. It's like, no, we don't want to do that. But yeah, I although on the flip side of the coin, I would love a documentary about the making of this movie. I would love someone who had been there to have rolled, some 16 millimeter film or even 8 millimeter film, just little handheld camera, and picked up little interviews and such throughout the filming. That is on the other side that I miss. Like I wish we'd had something like that. That just wasn't really a thing, back then. But all that to say, I think this is also one of those miracle movies where the right things happen at the right time with the right people, and very easily the thread could have come undone if anyone who's part of this formula was not there. If Bogart wasn't there, or if Curtiz wasn't ending up the director. But I think if he had been the first director, it probably would have been different versus coming in later. Like all these little push and pulls, we've seen it 100 times on different films, where it's the collective journey and path that movie takes that really pulls it together. And yeah, in 2020, not the year, but the hindsight. We look back and we say, oh, well, obviously that's, look at the great tie. Look at this. It's like, but we often forget in the moment, they're just trying to make the best movie they can. And sometimes they succeed.
Yeah, I think that's a worthwhile note. Like back when movies were first coming out, they were recognized as entertainment. And it wasn't supposed to be every film is going to change your life. It was okay to go and be like, you know what? Yeah, I'll catch the latest picture with Bogart. I like Bogart. I'm going to go see what that is. But that said, Tristan, this film encountered, it was a good success, but it wasn't like a breaking the bank sort of success.
It made its budget really, 9 times over.
It made its budget, but it was considered a reasonable success, but not like an earth-shattering success, at least according to the sources that I read. 9 times over. It's no
Gone with the Wind, okay? We're not making Gone with the Wind numbers.
It made somewhere between 3.7 and 6.9 million. I know, but the thing is, the thing that I got to know, you might be able to shed light on this. Box office on Wikipedia is listed as 3.7 to 6.9 million. It's a pretty wide range. So $3.2 million swath. So obviously it made money through re-releases. Video didn't exist and stuff like that. So basically, like, it's not Gone with the Wind money or anything like that. Do you think that this is a movie that grew in reputation over time justly? Or do you think that there was a cult film fan faction to it that sort of propelled it forward? The way that we saw with Citizen Kane.
Oh, I don't have the foggiest. I couldn't answer that in the slightest. But I will say that I think, speaking of Citizen Kane, like when you have movies that have such a huge, I don't want to say pedigree, that's not the right word, legacy, that have just a gigantic monumental legacy. Like when you're looking at Casablanca, when you're looking at Citizen Kane and Godfather, let's use those as an example. Like those 2 movies are arguably the best 2 movies ever made by consensus. I'm not saying they are. I'm not saying they aren't. But when you look at like AFI, BFI, like all those lists that come out every year where they're readjusted, or IMDb's top 250 or whatever, those 2 are always at the top of the list. Like they're competing with each other. And so, people go into them with a lot of baggage. Like if you weren't raised on Citizen Kane and Godfather like I was, then, you could come into it like I did with Casablanca. Like, okay, what's this really going to be like? Is this really going to be good? Or is it just good because it was good at the time? And am I going to like it? Or am I just supposed to like it? And I think those things go a long way. And like I was talking with my uncle the other day, and Godfather came up and he's like, I haven't seen any of those. And he's a huge movie guy. And I was like, how is that possible? And he's like, I don't like gangster films. And I was like, yeah, but this goes beyond that. Like this goes beyond that genre. He's like, I don't like gangster films. So, like he doesn't feel any societal pressure. And you got to admire that, honestly. But with Casablanca, I was really hesitant to go in it because I was like, man, I really hope that this doesn't suck. Like I really hope that this isn't that type of movie. But I did go into it with an open mind.
Well, we would expect no less. We know you well enough to know that that's going to be the case.
And
I hope so.
My answer to your question, John, again, I don't have any facts in front of me, but it gives me the vibes of It's a Wonderful Life, like a movie that was okay, but really once Turner Classic Movies started to show it like every Christmas, and then what is it when you look on Google, like when something was searched and you see like, oh, that's when that word like came into being. Same thing with this movie. Like it had its peak when it was released, and then it's dormant for decades, and then something culturally like a movie channel or something like that brings it back, and now it becomes part of the Christmas ethos where you watch it every year and New Year's and all that. So I get the feeling that Casablanca might have a similar story where, home video release or showing on cable introduced a newer generation to this movie and probably caused the upswing of acclaim that we know now. This is all just hypothetical, but that's the kind of vibe I get.
you're actually pretty close to the actual story, where it became a tradition for the film to be shown and eventually picked up around Harvard. And then, and then they started showing it on television an awful lot. And of course, you have people like Woody Allen making Play It Again, Sam, which lionizes the film in 1972. So obviously it's there in sort of the film student mindset, and that sort of carries it forward. And I think that, it's right to mention It's a Wonderful Life, which was shown on TV so much at one point that somebody bought the rights. It was like, okay, new rule, only once a year, because people were starting to get inured to the message of the film. But with all of the praise that the film has had through time, there are people who didn't love it, who found, who were somewhat detractors with it. Pauline Kael, legendary film critic, was one of the people that essentially called it hokey, corny, and all of the people who, loved it, they will even concede, there are things you can pick apart. So Tristan, with this being your first viewing, were there moments where you were picking apart a scene and it took you out? Or was it something where the editing kept everything flowing fast enough that it was only in retrospect that you started issuing specific criticism?
I don't think there's anything that really took me out of it, because I feel like the nature of movies that are this old, because this is, I guess you can't even call this pre-war, because this is war.
It came out
like
right.
This,
well, yep. Year after the States were in the war, even though the film is set before the United States got involved.
Right. And so that's crazy to me. And I think, like, when you're watching a movie that is 80 years old, like over 80 years old, I feel like you have a certain expectation that you're not going to be enveloped too terribly much with the technicality of it. Like, there's going to be jump cuts. There's going to be bad editing just because of limit. There's going to be times when you're like, yeah, this is hardcore a set. Like, I can see the cardboard. Like, there's going to be certain things like that happen. And am I saying that happens all the time with something that would, with 1941 movies and before? No, I'm not saying that at all. It's just like, you have that expectations that not everything's going to be seamless. And this movie is no different. I think, like, the opening scene where the guy who doesn't have his visa and then he runs away, and you get that invisible bullet with the invisible bullet wound, and he falls down. Like, you expect to see that in a movie this old. Like, you're not going to see, they didn't have squibs. Okay. You're not going to see a burst of blood. That's not going to pass, muster for the Hays Code.
They might have had trouble getting that past the board. They had to approve things. Yeah,
it's okay. It's in black and white. It's not blood. It's black.
It's chocolate syrup. But yeah, things like that are like, there's shots when we're in the cafe, and people are all of a sudden facing a different direction, and the next cut. It happens. Like, like Darren, you mentioned, It's a Wonderful Life. Frank Capra, everybody loves it. Super great. One of the worst edited movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
Monster.
Horrible editing.
You are a monster. You're an absolute monster for thinking so. No, but go on.
No, it's god awful editing. It's atrocious. Like, it breaks so many rules, and you're just like, did Frank Capra fall asleep that day? Did they have missing reels? What's going on? Terrible editing. I'm not saying that this was terrible editing, but you get that sensation of like, okay, you forgive a lot. But then you look at the cinematography, and John, I even texted you, like, I had to pause the movie and go help my kid with something. And I was like, man, I'm, 11 minutes in, and I'm already in awe of the cinematography. Just the use of the frame, the Z space, the movement of the camera was well beyond its time.
Yeah, the cinematographer was Arthur Edison, ASC, and he was active from 1914 to 1948. So this is on the tail end of his career. And shortly before he shot this, he had done the Maltese Falcon. Yes, which is a beautifully shot film.
How many
But
rules they break in that one, Tristan?
Yeah,
Just asking.
yeah, Tristan. How many rules? But the thing is, if you look through his filmography, I doubt that I've seen more than like 2 of his movies or whatever.
On Quiet on the Western Front, that one pops out.
But he, like, you look at how many movies he worked on, and it's like this guy did. I don't know. It's pretty. I don't have the math skills to count it up without somebody tallying it for me. But in terms of that photography, Darren, are you caught the same way? I mean, you've seen it so many times. These shots sort of burn themselves into your brain. Is there any specific shot this many years later? Is there any specific moment where you look at it even today and you go, that should be taught to people for how things should be framed or lit?
Again, just the whole fact of the use of black and white. I mean, I know I would never want to watch this movie in color. I think there is probably a colorized version somewhere, because
100%
often is.
But
it's the kind of thing where it is a silver screen movie. You need that gradient of gray. But the scenes that pop out to me just off the top of my head are anytime we're interacting with the piano. We're moving around the piano. We're hiding things in the piano. Sam's playing the piano. Like, it is... Like, you could ask me, oh, where's the bar in Rick's? I have no idea. I know where the piano is, but I don't know where. I mean, I could find where the drinks are poured, but it's the anchor of that establishment. So they put it like right in the middle almost. But so all those shots where, especially when we're hiding things and moving around or playing it again, Sam, those are some of my favorite shots because, they might, break the line every once in a while because, that's just what they do. But it doesn't take me out of it. It just is the story is strong enough to not, I'm never like, oh, wait, Sam was facing that way and Rick walked around him. It's like, no, it's just Sam and Rick. It's a scene of Sam and Rick. And I'm more interested in the dialogue. I'm more interested in the stakes that are rising throughout the course of this movie. But yeah, it's just a gorgeously shot movie.
In terms of the way it's shot for me, there's so many beautiful moments, but I think probably the weight on the scale is because I love the interaction of the characters. But when Sam is there and Rick is just drunk out of his mind, trying to forget his woes, and Sam refuses to leave him. And he's like, no, I'm not going to go. And Rick is trying to get Sam gone, and Sam is basically like, no, I'm not leaving. And then Ilsa shows up. He's like, oh, that's my cue. I'm out. But like,
I love that scene.
Yeah, it's an incredible scene, but it's also, I think, shot incredibly because the way the lighting falls, everything is in support of Rick without feeling like there's a spotlight on him. And it's so excellently done just to pull your eye in. I mean, it's so obvious to me looking at the work of Edison that you get, or it might be Edson, I don't know how to pronounce the name, but like you look at the way that is put and you can tell you're in the hands of somebody who's worked with film for so long that, I'm making a joke, but it could have easily been like Curtiz probably could have shown up one day and be like, I'm not entirely sure how to, and he's like, okay, I got it, Mike. It's okay. I know how to shoot this. Trust me. I did this 15 times on 3 other films 20 years ago. I got this. But in terms of these characters, Tristan, in your first viewing, I'm curious as to your impression of Rick as a character, as a protagonist, and his journey through the film. How did you feel Bogart handled the character? Do you think that he was worthy of that Oscar nomination that he got and the acclaim that he got, or do you think that he's benefited from the reputation of the film through time?
Well, I was surprised to hear that both him and Bergman hated making the movie. Like they kept trying to find ways to get out of it. They didn't like the dialogue. They didn't understand the story. Bergman, they said that they were still finalizing the script when they were filming the flashback scenes. And Bergman had no idea if she was supposed to be in love with Rick or the other guy. And so Bogey said, just play it down the middle. And so I think this is iconically Bogey. And like when you think Bogart, this is the movie that, even before I saw this movie, this was the movie that you think of when you hear the name Humphrey Bogart. And so it's kind of hard to say that he didn't deserve the accolades or doesn't deserve them, or it could have been anybody or it could have been somebody else. I feel like, you don't really, one criticism would be like, oh, you don't really see an arc to Tailby much because we're lit in from the get-go that he's a good guy, and they keep telling us that he's a good guy because they're like, he, fought the fascists in Spain and helped out people, I think in Ethiopia, I think is the other one. And he hides the letters when he doesn't need to, things like that. And regardless, it happens towards the end where you start to see like, oh, there's a switch. Like he is actually even more selfless than you think. Like he's not gonna, like he loves Ilsa so much that he's gonna make her go. And so you get that arc in like the last 10, 15 minutes, which is fine. But like, that's probably my only criticism about the character. Otherwise than that, I feel like I love movies that are based off of plays, stage plays. I absolutely love that because the dialogue is snappier most of the time. And it's a little heightened where don't shoot me for this example.
I will though.
But it is okay, like in Gilmore Girls, where like people don't talk like that. And I'm not just talking about the speed, but it's this weird.
It's dialogue talking. It sounds like dialogue.
Yes.
It sounds like dialogue, and that's okay if you buy into it. Like there's several movies where you're just like, wow, this person has never even had a human interaction. This is not one of those movies. Like it's a heightened reality to it. Like everyone has a quippy one-liner. Everyone has a response to everything. And so like you're kind of enveloped into that realm of dialogue. And this is one of those movies. And like one of my favorite movies of all time, Lion in Winter with O'Toole and Hepburn, is based off of a stage play. And it's basically just like somebody just copy and pasted the stage play into the screenplay, into the movie play, the movie script. And
teleplay.
Teleplay. It wasn't on television. It was on the screen.
It's a screenplay.
Cineplay.
Cineplay. Yes, we all know about the Cineplay. But it's like in that movie in itself too, like everyone's super witty, everyone's super smart, and like has a response to everything. And that's what I liked. Like one of my favorite parts about Casablanca is the script and Bogart's lines, Sam's lines, and the Colonel, whatever his name is.
Claude Rains' character?
Claude Rains. Or
the guy
Major Strasser.
Yeah. Strauss, like not Colonel,
the German,
the guy who played Prince John.
Not Renault, but
that's
the guy
Claude Rains.
That's Claude Rains.
Claude Rains.
That's
Renault. Captain Lee Renault.
Captain Renault.
Captain, yeah. I was wrong on all of those counts.
Yes.
But yeah, like I thought his character was a delight. Like he was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what's also great about this movie is you have Rick and you have the core trio, but you have circling them like a dozen great just characters. I love Peter Lorre in this. I mean, he's got a tiny little role.
Oh, Peter Lorre's transcendent in this. Like
he's so good.
He's been in so many things, but you think I mean, for me, I think of him in this movie. I'm like, and I'm always shocked when I watch it. I'm like, my God, he's in it for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, and you remember like every minute because it's so good. Well, and Claude Rains is interesting to compare. I mean, I think we all kind of agreed he was chewing the scenery in Adventures of Robin Hood. Like, it just shows like when you're given the right stuff to make a character. Like, look what he did with this. Same person, like 4 years difference.
Same director.
Same director.
And his performance is subtly charming enough that you forget what an absolute piece of human garbage Renault is in so many ways.
Person. He's not a good person.
No.
Well, and I mean, speaking of human garbage, you have Conrad
Veidt as Strasser, which is amazing.
And he, was also a refugee as a German actor and would often play Nazis because he wanted to play them like impactful, where you're like, this is a terrible person.
He fled Germany
right
with his wife who was Jewish, and then he plays Nazis, and it's like, what? I mean, that's a heck of a way to work out your action grind, right?
It happened right, and the character came across, and it did. I mean, it's one of the main core characters that you remember from this movie.
Yeah, he certainly is. But what's interesting is one guy that I always come back to, and it's because, of course, I'm a Star Wars nerd, as the other two of you are as well, is whenever George Lucas would describe his original vision for Jabba the Hutt, he said, it was sort of like Sidney Greenstreet in Casablanca, which before I saw Casablanca, I was like, okay. So I watched this every time, though, in my brain. I'm like, so this is what Jabba was supposed to be like. I see. And it's just horrible because Sidney Greenstreet is, I think, he's charming too. Like it's almost as if Curtiz's direction to everybody was, I want you to charm the pants off the audience. Just be as lovable as you can be, even if you're playing a dirtbag. And it's like, okay. And it works. And I think that is, Tristan, I think that leans into what you're talking about that heightened reality, that stage play sort of thing, is stage actors will always take the stage trying to project their charisma out to the audience because they want to be memorable. And I think that is one of the things that heightens Casablanca and makes it work as well as it does. Now, are either one of you familiar with the experiment that was done with Casablanca's script many years later? Where
yes, I know what you're going to mention. Yes.
Okay, please, you take the story.
So what they did was this was in the 80s, I think, which was a hell of a time for film. And
yes,
they renamed it Casablanca. I'm sorry, they took away the name Casablanca and they named it, what was it, like Everybody Goes to Rick's, something like that?
Which was the original play name. Yep.
And I think they changed a few details here and there, but kept virtually everything the same. And so they sent it out to a bunch of production companies. Some people recognized it right away, like, oh, this is just Casablanca. It's like somebody's being funny. And then other people...
So they made an edit of it. That's what you're talking about. Like they were publishing an edit of the film.
No.
No.
They took the script.
Oh, just about the screenplay. Okay, yep. I missed that part. I was like, "What are we sharing? How are we getting this?"
Yeah, they're sharing the script. Yeah, they're sharing the script and changed the name and took out a few details here and there. And some people recognized it as Casablanca right away. Other people didn't, and were like, "This movie's lame. This is never going to make money. There's not enough sex in it." I think at one time, I can't remember like what else. Like they said,
there were all sorts of criticisms of the dialogue. There were criticisms of the story. There were people who refused to push it forward. There were people who just rejected it outright. And like the vast majority wouldn't read it because of different concerns and everything. But of those who read it, like people were like a significant enough percentage. It was like, this would be better as a book. Don't make a movie out of this. And it was only like 3 agents would even agree to represent it and get it out into Hollywood. And that's fascinating to me because, again, like, I mean, Darren, obviously this is something where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts sort of thing. But when you're trying to break down the magic of it, if you were to pick one scene, one performance of Casablanca that hits you the hardest, that makes you understand it, like the scene that made it click, even if you can go back and put yourself in the shoes of the first time you ever saw it, what is the scene that you think would make it click for somebody to understand why people fall in love with this film?
Oh, man. Honestly, it's the first one that comes to mind is the scene where they have the dueling national anthems, any of the French national anthem and the German national anthem. It's a very powerful scene, not even just looking at the context of 1942, which is like the most important time to have that scene. And I think the fact that it's not really a scene about our main characters. It's more about these German guys at this table and these French people over here at the band. But our characters are in this moment, and the fact that Rick like lets them play, and the fact that like the way on the circumference, on the periphery of this scene they interact, it tells us not everything we need to know about our characters, but it gives us hints of who they are and what they stand for. So, I mean, it'd be easy to pick one of the big speeches or the quotey lines at the end, you know, that go on movie posters. But for that scene, not only do you have like literal tears coming from the actors who are French refugees, like they're not having to act. I think it's one of the most powerful scenes of the movie.
I think it's a beautiful scene. And it is definitely, I think it's interesting because of the fact that Rick, as the American, he just doesn't get involved. He's like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, play your songs. I'm not taking up a side on here. You guys have it out. Just don't shoot each other in here. And Tristan, I don't want to get into the territory of spoiling your initial review or anything, but was there a scene like that where regardless of the rest of the film, you're like, oh, if somebody's going to fall in love with this movie, it's going to be because of this?
Probably the scene we talked about earlier with Sam and Rick.
Okay, fair.
In the dark. Just, you know, it just made you fall in love with Sam's character. Like it made you recognize it. Let me rephrase. It moved Sam beyond being a token character where Rick is a good guy just because he took him along with him. Like, oh, you know, like he's such a good piano player. I brought him from France, you know, like, no. That's not it at all. That was not the case whatsoever. Like you could tell that these people care about each other. Like, yeah, you know, Rick's the boss and he pays him his salary, but he could make money playing piano anywhere. And they proved that right at the top with the dude with the fez. You know, he'll pay you double. He's like, I don't have enough time to spend that kind of money. You know?
Right. I barely have time to spend the money Rick gives me. Yep.
Yeah.
What a response. Right.
Yep.
It's such a great response. And it's just like, that's when you fall in love with Sam's character. I think like that's a great scene to show, but honestly, I would just tell people like, just start it. Just start the movie and you'll understand why you should stick with it. Like because it hooks you right away. And if you know anything about film, or I should say you have an appreciation for the era and you look at the cinematography, it'll snap you in right away. One thing I do want to talk about with you guys is the flashback scenes.
Yeah, I was about to go into that because Citizen Kane kicks the door open with flashback. And then here we go about a year later with Casablanca, and they embrace flashback. And the flashback in specific is something that Curtiz fought to keep, that people talked about cutting. And he was like, no, we got to have it. So yeah, go ahead. You know, like obviously you want to dip into it.
That was going to be one of my questions to you guys. Is like, do you think we needed the flashback scenes, or would it have worked without it? And I'm not saying yes. I'm not saying no. I genuinely want to ask you guys.
Well,
like, do you think
us to say yes and no?
He wants us to tell him what he should think. Darren, come on.
I mean, I think based off of the connection with like the play and stuff like that, I could definitely see it. It doesn't need them. It's not like, oh, that flashback elevated the character to new height. Like it's not that kind of a flashback, but I think it's a contrast. It's the only time you're seeing Rick smile. Like he is so happy in that flashback. It really underscores. I think you're numb to how sour he is and dour through the entire movie until you see, oh, he was a happy guy, and then you come back and you're like, okay, you're re-seeing Rick with a kind of fresh eye after that flashback, because I think that's the best thing that it does, is it kind of recontextualizes what was right in front of you, But it's like, no, this is what's happened to Rick, and this is how he's been kind of beaten down, and it also, I think, makes it very believable, his end choices on sacrifice, on sending her away, because I could see there also being a point without the flashback of, oh yeah, but he's the guy, he's the lead. Like, why is he doing that? Like, it adds a little bit to that. Again, I don't feel it needs to be in there. Like, the movie falls apart without it. But context-wise, I think it helps.
I will actually go the extra mile and say that the film is fine without it, but I think the film is great with it. And that is specifically because of all the stuff that you're talking about, Darren, is Rick is in danger of being one note through this film. But having that flashback gives you an opportunity to see exactly how much of Rick's persona that you've encountered and will encounter for a time after the flashback, how much of it is a conscious choice, how much of it is work on his part. And the reason he seems so bitter and tired is because he is pretending not to care. He cares very deeply. And the only reason he is who he is because he has decided to push the world. He's basically Scrooge. He was hurt in the past and he refuses to let the world in until the end of the film. And I think this flashback is just like going back and seeing Scrooge's past. And it's like Scrooge used to be a decent dude, but then by his own choices and sometimes by the choices of the world, he became a bitter man. Now, it's not a one-to-one, obviously. I love, adore, and am very familiar with A Christmas Carol, so please save your letters, okay? It's not a one-to-one. I get it. But I like the fact that Rick gets that break for that specific, and I think that is an example of they placed it right, is it breaks up the narrative and you get to see Rick smiling. And I also truly enjoy seeing Sam make him get on the train, because that, again, gives Sam even more importance to the story and really shows that he and Rick love each other. They truly are the best of friends. It's not just a friendship of convenience. So that's where I stand with it. So, I think that it's interesting that people wanted it cut. And obviously, the producer thought about, dubbing over Dooley Wilson in post-production and stuff like that. And there are post-production decisions made and everything. But I do want to talk about the fact that the producer, Hal Willis, had a very embarrassing moment at the Oscars when Casablanca won Best Picture. And I want to ask Tristan, what would you do if you were the producer of a film and you got literally blocked by the head of the studio's family so that the head of the studio could run up and take all of the credit for everything that you had seen put on screen? Exactly how mad would you have been? Would you have handled it with as polite an air as this producer who decided, I shall merely quit a month later? Or would you have straight up decked Warner at the end of the ceremony?
Definitely in between. I think I would have patted him on I would have given him a hug. Like what I would have done if I had if I knew this person, I can see myself in the situation where I'm sitting down with my wife and she's like, that hack is going to try to get up there first. And I'm like, yeah, I know. She's like, you gotta figure out what you're going to do. And so if he went up first, before he started talking, I would go up and give him a hug and then grab the statue as I'm hugging him and take it away. That's what I would do, so that no one would know what was happening.
I love that. That's beautiful. You wouldn't have gone for the full-on Will Smith slap of an innocent comedian, but you would have rather gone ahead with the very subtle takeaway of the award. I like this. And considering the fact that Wallace, he produced a lot of really incredible films, through his career, and it's stunning that Warner would not have the presence of mind not to alienate him, because this is a guy that would have continued producing incredible films for you, so that your studio would have continued making money and gotten esteem. So it's kind of stunning.
Of, Katzenberg, like,
oh,
he was doing great things, and then you're like, nope, you don't get to move up. And then look, he went off and made DreamWorks, their biggest competitor, right then.
That's an excellent point, actually. We always save talking about music for a certain segment, but this movie, more than probably, almost any other we've talked about, has a song in it that is burned into the cultural zeitgeist so severely that I hope that it catches on TikTok so that the movie and the song can continue for another generation. But obviously it's as time goes by. Darren, do you find that to be as effective a song as, its reputation has garnered through time? Because it's a song that they considered replacing at one point. Do you think that song is a great tie? Do you think that it's a great song deserving of its rep?
It is. I don't feel like it makes the movie. Like, it's again, comparing to other movies of the time or even later, makes me think of in It's a Wonderful Life, you have, like, they're singing Buffalo Gals, they have their song, and that's what, as time goes by, is it's their song. It's important because it's important to the characters, not because it's the best song out there. And it's not a bad song at all. It's a good song. And I think it was even, it makes you think of, wasn't in like the Warner Brothers intro for like a long time? Like just the beginning chords, like, da, 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 and then the WB would come up and run up and grab the statue. No. But, yeah, exactly. That's the end of the movie. But, so I'm just kind of in the middle. It's a good song. I enjoy it, but because it means something to our characters, I think it could have been anything. And if you had it connect and mean as much to the characters, we would talk the same about what the other choice would have been. So I'm not that hung up on it.
Now, here's the charged question, because I am definitely of an opinion about this, but I know that you two gentlemen, you're much more straight-laced than I am. But I maintain that one of the reasons that a film like this endures and resonates so much is everybody can relate with the idea of the lost love. Regardless of how happy they are in their current life, there's always, the old standby of the one that got away. Tristan, do you think that helps this film endure in the sense that everybody can relate to the idea that there's always going to be that one relationship where you think back and you go, if but for one thing, it would have gone differently? Do you think that helps this film continue?
I feel like it's a classic storytelling technique. It's kind of the basis for 70% of the rom-coms that we've gotten over the past 50 years. So I don't know if I can say that it helps it endure. It's just one of those aspects of humanity that so many people can connect with. I don't know if I can say specifically.
Oh, fair enough. Darren, do you want to take the wind out of my sails further after Tristan?
Yes,
there?
definitely.
Okay, please.
No, I think it's kind of the same where, to me, the thing that makes this movie enduring is the fact that our main character makes the right choice, even though it doesn't benefit him directly, and it's a hard choice to make. That, I think, is what you talk, and you made a good point about the relating to the lost love and things like that. And I think that's definitely there, but I think there's a stronger human connection of, if I was in the same position, I hope that I would make the same selfless choice as Rick. I feel that's a stronger connection of relatability. I haven't owned a nightclub in Casablanca. I don't have,
You're a young
friends.
man, Darren.
Okay,
There's still time.
But all that to say, I think, like you said, there is a connection. I just don't necessarily think the lost love is the angle that resonates. And maybe it's not the selflessness of Rick. It could be many things, but
Fair enough.
There goes your sales.
Well, you know what? It was worth a shot. Every so often I pitch something and it doesn't quite fly. But what does fly is that, Tristan, you're going to go after Darren and you're going to go after me. You're going to finish this whole thing. Darren, final thoughts and rating of Casablanca.
Oh, I mean, it's Casablanca. It's been around forever. It's on so many lists. If you're a film lover, it's great. If you just love good stories, I mean, I don't recall if we've actually shown it to our kids. I don't think we have, but anytime they've seen a movie like this, they call it like a silver movie because there's no color. But it's just such a great film. I will say I'm probably deconstructing my response with a 4 that I'm bumping to a 5 because of its connection with me and my wife's favorite film and things like that. Like, I don't want to just go out and say, oh, this is a 5 because like Citizen K is a 5 and Godfather's a 5. Like, then why have ratings if everything's a 5, But I think it's endured. It is still a classic movie. It's one of those movies, if you were, surfing on the television, kids, ask your parents, then, I would stop and watch the rest of it, no matter where it was. It's that kind of movie where it's not even that long. It's under 2 hours. So I'm giving it 5 times, 5 miniature men in the background next to the plane.
I will say that I give it an easy 5 because this is one of those few movies where it doesn't make me stupid cry at any point, but it does make me tear up because I think that there is some genuine emotion that it taps into. And there's, regardless of whether Bogart and Bergman hated making the movie or hated each other or blah, 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 whatever, or loved each other or anything like that. This is from the era where when people showed up to play in a film, they were going to show up and they were going to give everything. It did not matter what they thought of anything. This was their job. And if Humphrey Bogart's job was to show up and play a cynical cafe owner, then dadgummit, that's what he was going to play. Doesn't matter if he cared about the script or not. He was going to give what Curtiz was asking for. Same with Bergman, same with Greenstreet, same with everybody else. And I think that this is a film that comes together because the thread is so strong that all of these disparate parts, it's about the experience. And Darren, I'll tack on one last thing based on what you said, where you were like, oh, well, what's even the point of ratings if I'm giving everything a 5? I think if anything, a film like Casablanca is a film like Citizen Kane or even The Godfather, where it exposes the utter inanity of the star rating system to begin with, where it's actually better if we either pare it down to a thumbs up, thumbs down situation, or we just get rid of the star ratings overall and just have reviews. Because I could understand me praising this film and going on and then somebody attacking it. But what's my ground to stand on? Because I can honestly say Casablanca is just a movie that comes together so well at the end that I can't die on a specific hill for it, but I'll die on the big hill for everything. So 5 for me. Tristan, the audience is in suspense. We have saved it for last for this reason. Where, with your first viewing of Casablanca, do you rate this film?
I give it a solid 4. I think it's a fantastic film. I think it's well made. I think it got me smiling a lot of the times. And I think it's has really iconic characters. I think the only reason why I'm knocking it down a star is because this movie drags super hard in the middle. Like, it's a really weak second act. And it really grabs you at the beginning and it has an insanely solid ending. But I think like once you get past the flashbacks, it gets really weak for a little too long. But the thing is, you have to give it credit for what is in it and what came afterwards. Like I had no idea so much was in this movie that I just know about from being an American. Like the "Here's Looking at You" kid, I had no idea that was from Casablanca. Like you have the ending where like, like I have a feeling this is going to be a beautiful relationship. Like obviously I knew that was from Casablanca, but there's so many lines like that just like every 10, 15 minutes in this movie, you're like, oh my gosh, that's like an iconic line that everybody knows and everybody repeats. And so you got to give credence to that. So yeah, this is four films. This is four lit cigarettes in Bogey's mouth at one time. It's by no means a perfect film, but it is one of the greats.
Oh, 4 cigarettes at one time is a thrill that very few humans have ever experienced. But I promise you, I tried. So Darren, here we are. We've given our ratings and everything. What are we going to be talking about next week?
Next week, we'll be rounding out the house of Michael Curtiz as we cover 1955's We're No Angels, another Humphrey Bogart, here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.